Welcome back, Hans. Good to see you. First, tell us a little bit about this partnership. Why the New York Times?
So we have been working on being committed to education for a long time. We have been working with the schools to connect them and giving them STEM education. We have some 250 schools that we're addressing right now. And we already had the partnership with New York Times to bring their content when it comes to news and educational tools. And we thought now in this partnership we have already with New York Times, why don't we in these times when all the students are working from home, that we offer them free of charge, the 14 million high school students and the teachers access to this content. So that's how it came about. So it was a long-term relationship with New York Times. But in these times, you need to do what's right for the society. And this is absolutely right for society right now.
Yeah, we like to highlight these stories every single day, Hans. Wanted to also take the opportunity to ask you about your own business. I know you've spoken a lot recently about the increased demand that we as Americans and the entire world have for wireless and broadband and how those networks are really being stretched. What does it mean for Verizon? Are people upgrading their services and adding new services, or are they just sort of maximizing what they already have?
I think it's a little bit early. I mean, first of all, many people are staying home in these times, of course, because of the quarantine rules that are all around the country. So there is less of that. But of course, there are, corporations that is moving a lot of the employees home, and they need more capacity to do VPN. On the other hand, there are small and medium businesses that have a hard time to manage. And what we have said is, of course, when it comes to residential consumers and SMBs, we are not disconnecting them because they cannot pay at these times, because this is unprecedented time. It's a crisis that we've never seen before. So, and communication is so important. So it's a little bit of both at this moment. But I would say interesting stats that we came out with today is the mobile handoffs, is when people move from one mobile cell to another. In average in the country, 35% down that people are moving. And if you take like New York Metro, down over 50% the handovers between cells, and upper state of New York down 60%, that people are moving so much less around. So the social impact on this country right now is enormous, how people are staying home and moving much less.
Hans, to what extent do you think it's possible that the current data usage of the last couple of weeks will mark the peak for the United States or the world for perhaps a decade or longer to come, when you consider all the factors at play at the moment? And how impressive is it that you and your rivals collectively have managed to essentially make that continue to work, occasionally Sarah's connection aside, which is now also much improved?
And not Verizon, no. I'll confirm.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I have to say our network has held up very well, and we are on peak loads all the time, compared to what we would have on the highest days of the year. But to be honest, the network holds up very well. What we have seen week over week right now is very small increases. I mean, we had 100% growth of gaming, 50% growth of VPN from the baseline. Nowadays, we look week to week, it's 2 to 3% up. So we believe that the majority of people that works from home has moved home, as well as we have seen many of the entertainment services sort of being at the peak, and that's where the network is performing very well. If it's a wireless, the broadband on our internet networks or IP networks, they're all working fine. So I have to say the 17 to 18 billion US dollars that we invested in network the last 4 to 5 years per year, that is paying off in today's quality of the network. And I'm proud of our engineers that still are out there to keep the networks up for the first responders and critical infrastructure.
How much does that open us all up to cyber theft, Hans? We've been doing reporting here about Zoom video, certainly with businesses and individuals and schools all going online. Are you seeing more cyber activity? How do you assess the risk around that?
As the risk increases as you're moving to places where you have application where you have never worked before. We actually came out with a report and with guidelines for all corporations, small and medium businesses, what to think about when they bring their business home. But of course, you open up a little bit when it comes to the risk of it. But with partners and work together, you, of course, are improving quite a lot those security risks. And I think that all CIOs of large corporations are thinking a lot about this. So Of course, it's an increase because the bad guys see this as an opportunity. But on the other hand, I also see a high degree of understanding and sensitivity around the question.
What about Hans being more exposed to potential diseases and even coronavirus? What do you say to some of those conspiracy stories out there that suggest coronavirus is linked some way to 5G?
I can only say it's fake news. There are no correlation between 5G and any coronavirus. So in these times, a lot of strange information comes out, but there's no correlation at all.
I want to come back to what we kicked off the interview on and that decision for you to offer subscriptions with the New York Times online for free to certain individuals, specifically school children. Where do you draw the line? I'm not trying to suggest you should be going further, but where do you draw the line, Hans, in terms of when you should be doing things for free for good during these tough times? I mean, it's amazing to do to school children, but clearly there's all sorts of people out there that may want more information and may be struggling to pay for things in this difficult time. How do you weigh that up as a CEO to generate profits long term for shareholders versus doing the right thing in times like this?
I always sit down with my team. I balance between customers, shareholders, employees, and society. And you need to have a healthy balance of that all the time. Secondly, this is a time when you stand up for the most vulnerable in our society. I mean, long term, it's absolutely right to do the right things. If it's for first responders, small and medium businesses, consumers that give more data, this is the time you do it. It's a crisis there is no playbook for. We have never had any crisis like this before. Big corporations like Verizon need to take the responsibility, and that's why we balance that every day for do the right thing for society, equally much for our shareholders. But so far, I think we are coming out well. We do a lot for SMBs, residential, consumers. We do for students now, and we're going to continue. This is not over. We're going to find new ways to partner with new organizations to do even better things.
So, Hans, I mean, your stock has held up relatively well during this enormous volatility. Obviously, stable telecom giant, recurring revenue, strong cash flow, dividends. But I'm trying to sort of figure out what a recession would mean for a company like yours. For instance, if we do see small business failures in this country, wouldn't that take away a big source of revenue, not to mention the stores being closed? How do you think about it?
First of all, I think that nobody can estimate at this moment the impact of this pandemic and to the economy and how it will hit. I think that it will hit all companies for sure. Then it's going to be different levels of different companies. In our case, we have said it's too early for us to assess how it's going to impact. But of course, it depends on how long this will, the duration of this crisis and how economical impacting it will be. But so far, we're just saying that it's too early to assess. But still, I think that technology, broadband, wireless is so important. And I believe it's a 21st century infrastructure. And we are sitting on all of it. So I think that is an important asset to sit on. And I think we're well positioned as a company to do the right thing in these times.
Are you feeling good about your decision to not get into movie and TV business, unlike your biggest competitor?
I would say that everyone takes different decisions on their strategy. I feel good about our strategy, and I don't think our strategy will change because of this type of crisis. Tactics can change, but we feel good about our strategy to actually double down to have the best network because we think that is so important.